Hello, my name is Rachael Watson, and I'm going to share Psalm 126 with you guys. Let's just dig in. A song of ascents. When the Lord restored the fortunes of Zion, we were like those who dream. Then our mouth was filled with laughter and our tongue with shouts of joy. Then they said among the nations, the Lord has done great things for them. The Lord has done great things for us. We are glad. Restore our fortunes, O Lord, like streams in the Negeb. Those who sow in tears shall reap with shouts of joy. He who goes out weeping, bearing the seeds for sowing, shall come home with shouts of joy, bringing his sheaves with him. So today, this psalm addresses moments in our life when we are going through something hard. We have despair in our hearts. We're weeping. There's a heavy burden that goes along with the job that we've been given. I'd say in the past few months, many of us have had that feeling. We're overwhelmed by what has happened in the world. It's had an effect on us. And I don't know about you, but when I'm in that place, I get this tunnel vision. I'm overwhelmed by this big situation, the problem, the thing I can't change, my emotions, the anger, the grief, the fear, the despair, whatever it is, just seems to crowd in, and there's not space in my life for anything else. And I think that is something that this psalmist knows well, like that feeling. And yet he doesn't start this psalm in that place. He actually goes back. When Adam and I were hiking Hadrian's Wall, we did this about 8 or 9 years ago. We went walking from one side to the other. So, I don't know, upwards of 80 miles. And we developed this tradition that we've carried on whenever we're on a long walk. And we look at each other and we say, don't forget to look back. Don't forget to look behind. Because when you look behind, often there's an amazing view that you're just missing, the landscape. And also there's this knowledge when you're looking back of where you were and where you are now. You know, you can look down and see the valley. You can look and see the cliffs. You can remember how hard those moments were. And then you can kind of zoom out and see where those moments brought you. You can see how they fit into the larger picture. And, usually it's just pretty, which is part of the reason we started it. But it's something that has bled into the rest of our life is don't forget to look behind. And I see that in this psalm when they say, it was like, when the Lord restored the fortunes of Zion, we were like those who dream. It's that joy that is so massive that you get in these moments where you just feel like you're in a dream. Adam's mom gave us this beautiful book that his sister made, and it's our book of remembrances. Each of us have one in the family. And she talked about how when she was reading in Exodus, she saw that there were many times that the Israelites would say, remember the God who brought us out of Egypt. Remember the God, who saved us. Remember what he had done. That when they say Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, you're speaking about God's relationship with those people and what he had done in their lives, and also just collectively what it means for all of us. And she said, one of the most powerful things you can do in life is to remember what God has done for you in your life. But it can be hard, especially, over years. I mean, I don't know about you, sometimes I can't remember what I had for lunch the day before, much less maybe something that God did a few years ago. We forget really easily. And I think there's something really important here, which is that we should try our hardest not to forget what God has done. And if you can, write it down. If you can't, come up with your own phrase. Remember when God did this, you know? And you'll see that, you know, it's there. It's in your life. I want to go ahead and read Psalm 126 from the Message version. So, a pilgrim song. It seemed like a dream, too good to be true. We laughed, we sang. We couldn't believe our good fortune. We were the talk of the nations. God was wonderful to them. God was wonderful to us. We are one happy people. And now, God, do it again. Bring rains to our drought-stricken lives. So those who planted their crops in despair will shout hurrahs at the harvest. So those who went off with heavy hearts will come home with armloads of blessing. Wow. I love here how in the middle of this psalm, after talking about the past, when they're talking about the present, both, you know, of course there's a longing for their fortunes to be restored, but there's also an acknowledgement of gratitude. We are glad. We are one happy people. Thank you, Lord, for what you've done. And sometimes gratitude is a very, very powerful medicine for our souls. Remember what God has done. And the other thing is that when you don't know how to pray, when you don't know what the situation needs, sometimes you can just say, restore our fortunes, bring us back to where we were, do it again. You know, you don't have to get specific. God knows and he understands. And I especially wanted to talk to younger people who this lockdown experience has probably been, you know, the most difficult thing that you've done. And I know it's been incredibly difficult for me. And I don't know how it has been for you, but I imagine it's been hard. And as you're looking back in your life, you might not have an epic struggle. You might not have had the loss of a loved one. You might not have had a moment in life where you were in the depths of despair, where you were going out to plant these seeds that are heavy to bear, going out weeping. And I want to encourage you that this is not the end of your story, that this is the first time you will see that God proves to be faithful, that he will be with you in the midst of this, that he will not abandon you, and that later on in your life, this can be written in your book of remembrances, that you can remember that God upheld you through this time, and that after the despair, it was like you were in a dream from the joy that you felt in your heart. I want to encourage you because this is massive. It's epic what's being asked of you, what has been asked of you in the past few months. And I just wanted to speak to you and say that God has not abandoned you, and that if this is the first hard thing that you've gone through, don't despair, don't give up. There will be hope. Lastly, I wanted to share a song I came across when I was having probably my first hard time in life. I lost the closest friend I'd ever had. She was 19 and then she was gone. And in the midst of that, this song came to me that I had seen my professor choreograph to. And the song says, Jesus' love never fails me yet, never fails me yet, never fails me yet. Jesus' love never fails me yet. If there's one thing I know, it's that he loves me so. That, I can't tell you how many times when I've been in the midst of despair, that God brings those simple words back to me. Jesus' blood has never failed me yet, never failed me yet. If there's one thing I know, it's that he loves me so. And I hear that in this song of the psalmist, that God, in every moment of their life, has brought about joy, has brought about hope, has restored fortunes. That sometimes God does call us to hard things, but he is faithful while we go through it. I looked up the story of that song, and you guys might be familiar with it. I hadn't been. There was a filmmaker who was interviewing the homeless community in London in the 70s. And that's one audio clip that he picked up. And it wasn't used in the documentary, but then he found himself going back to it and creating this song, this musical score out of it, which is how it ended up decades later in Mississippi, reaching me. And to know that God, he hasn't failed us. He didn't, fail the original person that sang that song, and he will not fail us. That we can rest easy. I felt God saying in the past several months to me, Rachel, I am the same as I was yesterday, today, and in the future. Today is not the day. I'm changing. I am faithful. So I want you to hear that today, that God is faithful, that when we go out planting our crops in despair, sowing while weeping, that at the end we'll be shouting hurrahs, we'll come home with shouts of joy, we'll bring arms full of blessings. Write down, remember your remembrances throughout your life when God has been faithful, so that when another time comes, and it will, you can remember what God has done and what he will do. That's it. Thank you, guys.